Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pizza Cake podcast with me, your host Liz Campbell. And today, oh God, what an interesting subject. Here's where I kind of go off the piste or off topic or whatever of what I usually address to a certain extent. Partly because my it's been a bit of a year for all sorts of crazy shit going on. One of the things that's been going on has been my father-in-law, who collapsed 2 years ago and has been bedridden ever since, and has become sort of progressively, like, he went from slight dementia to like he's kind of late stage dementia now, so he's barely lucid most of the time. When he's awake, he doesn't really know what the fuck is going on most of the time. And he's in the process of kind of being under review to be put into palliative care by local council and so on and so forth. And it's that, alongside the fact that one of my good friends experienced bereavement recently, and there's been a lot of it. I'm just trying to think. There's been a lot been a lot of death over the past year or so, various different people, and I've been thinking, as a result of all of this, about the fact that I do actually honestly think one of the most invaluable things that anyone can do is develop their mediumship abilities. And I'm going to stick my neck out here and say that anybody can do this, okay? Psychic abilities, the ability to connect with people beyond the veil, is not something that is a rarefied special thing, no matter what anyone might fucking say. It might be more difficult for some people, but it is not impossible, okay? And I'll come back to this thing of DNA activation and all of that, like the work that I do, everything that I do, like the energetic tools that I provide will increase your ability to do these things. But the bottom line is that if you are a human being, you can learn how to tap into your abilities. The important thing with all of this, obviously, there's energetic hygiene to consider. There's various different things. You can't just go flying off into the ethers willy-nilly without a little bit of foresight, and kind of having a system in place, like grounding, protection, all of that stuff. Okay, I'm not going to go into the details of all of this here, but this is one of those if you know type of things. Like if you've done a Reiki certification, if you've studied any form of energy work with anyone whatsoever, and it's been done on a certification basis, they would have taken you through things like grounding, disconnecting, all that kind of stuff. And it's something I will always emphasize. If you are working with energy and you work with the energy of other people, you have to make sure you disconnect from their energy at the end of things, like the ground first, that you make sure that you're fully in your energy, that you have permission, so on and so forth. There's important things to consider, like consent and all of that sort of stuff. And also, it's very, very important to disconnect, to clean down, and to make sure everything's sealed up at the end. So you make sure your field sealed, their field sealed, etc., etc. Okay. I will add in also that, tools like the Reboot and stuff that I sell, all of that's built in. Okay. So it's all that's all in. It's done. Like, this is why the things I've put together are great, because it's done for you. It's all in there. Okay. Which is why the work that I produce is so powerful, and it just makes life a shitload easier. Anyhow, yeah, with all of this, I'm actually just starting to realize, you know, like we come back to this thing, we talking about Reboot 11. The big Reboot 11 course talks about all of this stuff. I've also produced like a smaller pack called the Reset, which is, it is ostensibly aimed at like, it's essentially, it's self-coaching and activation that can be aimed at any goal, and there's a reboot in it that's designed to help you really understand what it is that your soul truly wants, that you have probably been fucking ignoring. You know, because, you know, as humans we tend to do that. And I'm realizing, you know, you can point this at, you can point this whole reset process when you use it, and the beauty of it is you can buy it and you can use it again and again and again. It's only 200 quid, like I'll say the link below this video as well. But quite apart from that, like, you can point this at your psychic abilities and opening those up just as much as you can point this at a physical goal, a material goal of some kind, which is, you know, why it's such powerful work. And it's funny actually, because I hadn't even put in the right, it hadn't even occurred to me till now to talk about this. It hadn't occurred to me to put it in the write-up either. I don't know why. I wasn't thinking about these things at the time, but it's really come to the forefront now because I'm witnessing, you know, I'm witnessing my father-in-law go through what is essentially like a slow progression towards his own death. You know, the doctor has acknowledged that he's probably not going to be around for much longer, that like we've got social services and so on basically in touch with my mother-in-law, looking at palliative care and all of that sort of stuff. You know, it's a pretty horrendous situation, and one that is probably all too familiar to too many fucking people because of the fact that this happens to so many people. You know, I'm just trying to think, over the course of my lifetime so far, like I've known quite a few people who've ended up having to deal with elderly parents who either had Alzheimer's or dementia to varying degrees. And, you know, that like everything that happens around that, and it, yeah. It just makes me think, when you look at like that whole process, I'm just really looking at this now. When you look at that whole process, and when you look at like the whole thing of when loved ones pass over, so when they die, and this is a process I kind of took one of my friends through recently because their father died. And I, you know, I said at the time, like, this is the thing, like, people do need to understand that just because someone's died, it doesn't mean to say that you cannot connect with their soul. And I actually honestly think that if everyone just opened up their mediumship abilities just a little bit, you don't have to let every bloody Tom, Dick and Harry that's in the spirit world in. You don't have to become like some walking like astral plane beacon for every fucking every crossed spirit that wants to have a word with you. And I have met people who've kind of experienced that and have been really like strung out by it, because it's not that much fun when you're being followed home by the ghosts of people and so on and so forth. And, you know, it does happen. But to be able to communicate, not only does it give you some kind of sense of like that, well, for want of a better way of putting it, it stops you from feeling so abandoned, right? Because I think that's the big thing, isn't it? When people die, like, there's this big thing that happens where we feel like we've been abandoned or forsaken by them, and actually we come back to that thing of it's like they're in the next room. They're still there. They're just in a different fucking dimension. So you can't actually reach out and hug them, but they're there. You can connect with them. You can have a conversation with them. And it would just serve humanity so well if we all got a bit more tapped into the idea of doing this, rather than acting like the door's closed and you can't ever knock on it, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. Cheerful subject matter. No, it's been quite close to home. Like, there's been, over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of deaths around me. My surrogate father figure from, like, basically he was one of my mum's old friends. There was a period at the beginning of 2024, I think it was, where it was like fucking everything happened, honestly. So my partner's best mate died, and then 4 days later, my partner's dad, my father-in-law, as I call him, like, we're not married, but I call him my father-in-law because it's just easier. Like, we've been together for like nearly 15 years now. So my father-in-law collapsed. And everyone thought he was going to die then, but then he didn't. But he's basically been bedridden ever since. Then within the space of, I'm just trying to think, within 3 weeks, my surrogate father figure died. That was fucking devastating to me, because he was like, I basically lived with this man and his partner, his long-term partner at the time, for 2 years after I moved out of my mum's house when I was 17. And he had been a big fixture in my life before then. And he was like a substitute dad to me. And it was, yeah. And we'd maintained contact over the years. In fact, he'd helped me out when my mum was being really fucking difficult about some stuff, because he still lives down that end of the country. And in fact, we'd had a conversation literally just a few weeks beforehand, to do with an ex-boyfriend of mine from when I was a teenager, who had moved to Australia at one point, who'd moved back and then fucking gone back to Shepton Mallet and basically lamped him on the doorstep. That wasn't what killed him. He got ill suddenly. I think it was like a sort of, it wasn't COVID, it was something else. But yeah, so there was that. I then went through a process of realizing that some of the people, namely my surrogate father figure, is now on my spirit team. So that was, he showed up in quite a few of my dreams and made it very fucking clear to me that he's still hanging around and he's there for me, which was nice, And this is the thing, this is the gift of doing this work. It's the gift of doing this work, and understanding that death's not the end. I kind of feel like Mike, the surrogate father figure, he shuffled out of one role and took on another role and I dare say he's doing it with his daughter too, but essentially, he pops up in my dreams all the time, and he tries to give me advice as well. Doesn't always, sometimes it falls on deaf ears, but the connection is still there. This is the point I'm making. The connection is still there. The love is very, very much there. The love is very real. And if I could do one thing for people, it would it would be to encourage you. If you're watching this or listening to this now, I want to encourage you not to go to mediums to do readings for you, but to learn how to connect in yourself so that you can have the conversation. And I will say right now, I have certain things like the reset, you could definitely use for this purpose. Okay, Reboot 11 you can definitely use for this purpose. There aren't other things as such. I'm creating a course on energy work, which I will be going into the whys, wherefores, hows, etc. In that's not available yet. I'm expecting that I'm going to have that ready to launch in January. I'm guessing it's a big fucking piece of work, but you know, it's for those of you who want a very practical guide on working with energy, with stuff that I have basically figured out extensively for myself, you know, is lived experience shit, then it will be there and it will be something that you can get your hands on, but not yet. And speaking of all of that, actually, like, as a complete tangent, because it's not to do with mediumship, but the self concept and subconscious reprogramming end of things, I'm, as part of this course, because I'm recording it and it's going to go into the course as like part of the bigger course, I'm holding a workshop on Monday, this forthcoming Monday the 17th, and I might actually sell it as a separate thing outside of that. So the recording, I might sell the recording afterwards, essentially, once it's been recorded, as a separate thing to the course, going into self-concept, changing your self-concept at lightning speed, changing, like, basically subconscious reprogramming, but not the way most people, when they approach subconscious reprogramming, involves a shit ton of repetition and really long convoluted things. This is way fucking faster, way faster, and something that I use. I say something, lots of things that I use. I've been writing the body of this workshop for the past week. It's pages. Not that I want to make it sound overcomplicated, but essentially, you know, that's another kind of option. I'll stick a link for that below this as well. And once it's, in fact, you know, I'm figuring this out as I go. I am actually going to sell it I will be selling it as a recording afterwards. So if you can't attend live, then you can sign up and get the recording afterwards, basically, because again, powerful work. And I feel like when you have powerful work and you know how valuable it is, you want to make sure that it's available for the people who are ready for it. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, like, you demonstrate being ready for it by being prepared to pay the value exchange for it in terms of monetary terms. Okay, yeah, so the reset, you can basically take yourself through this process. Been talking to someone who's been doing this with the reset, someone who's actually in the Reboot 11 group that's set up specifically for people who've bought the whole Reboot 11 course, and I've been massively impressed with the depth and integrity that they've been approaching this process with, because you can go deep with this and it helps you to understand a lot about where you might have been, you know, self-sabotaging and so on and so forth. And I come back to that thing of, you know, the whole idea with any kind of mentor, guide, coach is for that person to lead you into connecting with yourself more deeply, understanding yourself better, and gaining some skills along the way. You know, like, that's the way I approach this kind of stuff. And the people I know that are really in high integrity, there's some who just seem to be more interested in, I don't know exactly what it is, but anyhow, I'm not gonna go off bagging people, but, you know, I've just seen far too much of it. I've seen far too much of people claiming to coach, but who are actually more interested in projecting their strategy or whatever onto someone. And we are all unique individual beings, and we have the answers inside. Sometimes we need someone to help us see those answers for ourselves. This is the value of working with someone, you know, and I've made it so much simpler. You don't have to deal with me with my views on anything. If you're looking at digital products that I've created, like, You are, it's you, yourself and you, with the tools and the process, without my voice going, but what about this in the background? Anyhow, all of these things, good things to think about. If you would like to have more information on how you can, what different ways in which you can work with me, you can check the links underneath this video, of which I will probably be putting absolute shit ton. You know, whole variety. So, fill your boots. Till next time. And I am going to be doing these weekly from now on, so. And for those of you who have been wondering what the fuck, I did actually have a conversation with Sabrina the other day, and I was just like, girl, we need to do some podcasts together again because I want to have more fun, and it was fun, and we need to hang out more. And she was just like, yes, I actually agree, apart from the fact I've been feeling really shit because she's had loads of stuff going on, like, again, on the whole subject of people dying. She's been having to, like, there's been a lot of death around, like, there's been a lot of death around people that I know recently. And for those of us, you know, for those of us who do this work, we understand that death's not the end. Coming back to that whole thing. And for those of us who haven't fucking worked that one out yet, you know, maybe you're one of these people that hadn't worked it out yet, and maybe you're watching this now, and maybe this is exactly what you needed as the encouragement to understand that you can activate your mediumship abilities, even if you think it's the furthest thing from what you're capable of. You know, you can connect. I'm like, I will say right now, you know, there's different ways in which you can sense and have conversations and so on and so forth. Some people have like a full on, like, they'll see the person standing in front of them. It doesn't work that way for me. I get a voice in my ear usually. But yeah, all of the work that I produce is really good for opening up that side of things. You know, it's one of the things I know I'm here to help other people with. Like, there's a multitude of uses for the work that I do, but one of the things that it does help with is the opening of psychic abilities. Yeah, essentially. So, mwah. I will see you all next time. I think I whittled on enough.